Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Cross and Pen. My name is Bill and I sponsor this channel, The Cross and Pen, as well as a blog. And the blog address is right down below in the description, so go ahead and check out my blog. I wanted to talk today a little bit more about God's peace. In Philippians, Paul writes about the peace that passeth all understanding. And I've experienced that peace, and I've talked about that in my blog post. But I wanted to just elaborate on that a little bit more in a video for folks. So if you followed any of my posts on my blog or on YouTube, you will undoubtedly know that several months ago, back in February, I was in a skydiving accident. I had a hard landing because I forgot to flare my chute, and I suffered what I later learned was technically termed a displaced trimalleolar fracture, as well as some ligament damage. And so one of the things that happened almost immediately when I landed was a sense of calm, a sense of peace. And really what it was the absence of anxiety. It was the absence of worry. And it was strange because I knew that I had seriously injured my foot. I could look down and see that it was pointed in a particular direction. I could see that it was swollen. There was a lump sticking out where the bone had displaced. So I was very aware that this was something of a serious situation. Now, as I learned, it was a little more serious than I thought it was. I thought, okay, it's just broken, put it back together, align it, slap a cast on it, call it a day. That was not to be the case. In fact, 2 surgeries were required. The first surgery was to essentially align my soft tissue, and a cage was used for that. It's called an external fixator, but it's a cage in layman's terms that essentially keeps my foot straight. It's screwed into my foot as well as into my my shin bone, my tibia. I've learned a lot of anatomy down there. So I had to have that surgery. I had to have a second surgery, 14 screws, 2 plates, some synthetic ligaments. And here I am in July, almost into August, hobbling / limping. I'm not quite there yet. I'm about 85, 90%. But I'm getting there. But what immediately struck me as I looked back, and even throughout the initial moment of that day and the following days and the subsequent days, was a lack of worrying. I don't say lack of concern, because I was concerned, but ultimately I wasn't really that concerned. I just had this sense that everything was going to be okay. And I wasn't worried, I wasn't upset. I did document that surgery was one of my greatest fears, and I had to face that twice. The second time was cake, because after the first time, there was nothing to fear. And so I went through all that, but at no point, that one day, the initial day, February 10th was when this happened. I had surgery that evening. Once my surgery was over, the next day I left. 2 weeks later, I was back for another surgery. It's about 6 hours long. At no point in time during this whole ordeal was I ever worried. I was not anxious, a little frustrated because I want to be better sooner than I am. I want to be further along in this healing process. But there was never worry. There was never concern. And so I was immediately struck when this happened, and I thought of those words. I mean, I wasn't even back at the hangar when they sent the golf cart out to pick me up. It's called a Gator. It's like a redneck golf cart. It's better than a regular golf cart. But from the moment that I radioed my instructor to come get me, I said I broke my ankle, come get me, there was a sense of calm. Just complete calm and peace. And as I wrote about my blog post, imagine if you're going through an ordeal, whatever it is, and Jesus is right there. And I don't mean in the, oh, well, Jesus is always with us sense of that term. I mean, he's like right there. like you can see him, you can talk to him. He's literally right there. And I thought about that. If that were the case in any situation, how worried could you be? Right? I'm sitting in the golf cart, my legs sticking out. Feel like a football player being carted off the field. But I look over and here's Jesus literally sitting right next to me, right? Now, I'm not saying that happened. I'm saying we're imagining that. But imagine that's the case. And he is sitting right there. And it's him. It's not like, Jesus in disguise or something. It's him. It's him. It's him. Really think about that. Think about how you would feel in that moment. Would you be concerned? Would you be worried? Would you be looking at him saying, hey, Jesus, look at my foot here. A little help, a little miracle action, right? Maybe. Maybe we would think those thoughts. But those thoughts aside, those comments aside, hey, we're all human. I would do it. I would definitely say something like that to him because that's just me. And I would say, hey, can you say some words? Can you touch my foot? Can we do a little healing action here? You did a lot of healing in the New Testament. Let's do a little here. Okay. But beyond that would be the comfort that you would have knowing he was right there. Because what could really go wrong at that point? I mean, at that point, everything else has gone wrong because that's where you are. So for me, hey, everything had gone wrong. It's as wrong as it can be, really, pretty much to that point. But yet I feel this peace like he's sitting right there. And that, to me, is what the peace that transcendeth all understanding really is. It's the peace, not because God's saying, hey, I'm going to come. It's the calm that you would feel if Jesus were sitting right there. In any situation, no matter how dire, how upsetting, loss of a loved one, a medical issue, regardless of what the experience would be, if he were standing there next to you, basically saying, hey, you're not going this alone. I'm with you. I'm right here. I'm with you. Imagine that peace. That's the peace that passeth all understanding. And it was clear to me throughout the entire experience that that's what that peace really was. Because that's what I felt. I felt completely calm. I knew, not believed, knew that everything was going to be fine. I wasn't worried about insurance or doctors or procedures or medicines or even my wife managing to navigate her way to where I was. Because when this happened, I was about 30 miles from home, a good 45-minute drive. And she had never been to where I was, so she had to figure all that out. But none of that concerned me. I was not worried. I was in this state of calm. I was joking. I made lots of jokes to my nurses and my doctors. You can read about some of that in my blog post. I wrote a really good blog post. Well, I think it's a good blog post. But I wrote a blog post in which I detailed the entire experience called The Best Worst Experience of My Life. It's fairly long, about 4,000 words. But throughout the entire process, I was happy. I was content. I never felt alone. And in fact, I've never felt like that before in my life. And I don't want to say I felt this overwhelming presence of God or of Jesus. I just didn't feel alone. I was comforted in a way that I have never been comforted before in my life. And this was probably one of the most serious situations that I personally have ever been in that involved me directly. I've been indirectly involved in a lot, but nothing like this. Now, for the skeptics out there that might say, oh, it's medication. No, it had nothing to do with medication. Believe me, because that medication ended a long time ago. I am still at peace over this. And what's really fascinating to me about this situation is something that I could not have foreseen going into it. Now, this is a bit of speculation on my part. I'm putting 2 and 2 and 3 together to make 4. But because of this situation, I have been working from home since February 10th when this happened. Actually, the 13th, which was that Monday. I had my surgery, came home on the 11th, 12th was Sunday, so I started working from home February 13th. I've still been at home. My surgeon's keeping me at home until the end of next month. I go back to work on campus, where I work in early September. One of the great joys that I've had working from home, and I experienced usually on those days when I did work at home periodically throughout the year, is my one dog, who was sort of my baby, my dog, would lay at my feet. She's 12 years old, and I'm hoping she makes it to 14, 15 years old. But life and reality are what they are. And I never realized until just recently, when she had a little medical issue that wasn't too serious, but was serious enough to make me think about her life and my life, and that moment that will inevitably coming at some point, hopefully much later than sooner. But without having had this experience, I wouldn't have had all that time to work from home where she laid at my feet every day. For most of the part of the day, she would be there. Almost every day, that's where she is. Now, that may sound like nothing significant, and it may not be anything significant to anyone else, but it's very significant to me. Now, I'm not saying that God said, hey, we're going to have you break your ankle, and you're going to get to have all this time, and you're going to be eternally grateful, and it's going to be wonderful. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, one of the byproducts of what could have been a really bad situation is something that is a benefit that I didn't realize fully until just recently. I took that for granted. So in every bad situation, some good can come out of it. I know that's just a trite phrase and everybody hates hearing it. It's like everything happens for a reason. But if you're a believer, God will use whatever situation you're in for your growth as well as the growth of others. This situation has allowed me to grow in many ways that would never have been able to grow previously without that. Something I'm going to be talking about down the road in a blog post is the growing pains of faith that we go through. But this experience has allowed me to feel comforted in a way that I could never have experienced ever without something like this. And because of that, I'm grateful for this experience. I'm grateful for the fact that I have been able to work from home. I have some great colleagues, and yeah, it sounds kind of crazy, silly, but I'm grateful that I could have my dog lay in front of me by my feet every day under my desk. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for every moment, and I'm grateful for all of the people that are in my life that I forget, that are in my life, that care about me, who showed concern and support. All of that came out of a situation that most people would have labeled as tragic and horrific and horrendous. But for me, even now, this has still been a great experience. Sounds crazy, but you know what? I felt God's presence. I felt Jesus' presence with me, literally, like he was with me in the room, like he was with me on the way to the hospital. At every single point, I felt him there. And I was never worried because he had my hand. He held my hand. He's like, hey, I'm here. I've got this. Relax. And I did. And it's a relaxed feeling unlike anything you have ever felt because you're not concerned about it. Instead, you're just consumed with his presence. So when we talk about that peace, what we're talking about, I believe, is a peace that comes not because God's just giving us his peace per se, but the way he gives it to us is we have the presence of his son. And in those moments where we feel that peace, It's due to a realization that his son is right there. It's a comforting presence that we feel. And the peace that passeth all understanding can only come from one person. And it can only come from the person who is in complete control of everything. When Jesus walked this earth and he demonstrated who he was through his miracles, through his word, through his life, therein lies our comfort, and therein lies our peace, because he is called the Prince of Peace. We think the Prince of Peace meaning, oh, there's no war, there's no strife, there's no conflict, and that's true. But he's also the Prince of Peace because he gives us that peace through his comfort. Because only somebody who's in complete control of everything can provide comfort at that level. And that's what I learned about Paul's words when he talked about the peace that passeth all understanding. I hope that if you're going through any kind of situation in life that's stressful and causing anxiety, I hope and I pray that God will send his peace to you in the form of his Son to comfort you, because it is indeed a feeling unlike any other. Until next time, I bid you peace.